against religion, in the name of religion. People think history is a battle between religion and unbelief. That story is comfortable. It is also false. Religion has never fought atheism. It has fought another religion. Every prophet was opposed not by the godless but by believers, not by those without faith, but by those with the wrong faith. One religion wakes people up, the other puts them to sleep. One challenges power, the other protects it. What you are about to hear is not a defense of religion. It is an accusation. Not against belief itself, but against the religion that conquered history by wearing the mask of God. Listen carefully, because this conflict is not ancient. It is happening now. Part 1. I announced that the subject of these talks, tonight and tomorrow night, would be religion standing against religion. At first hearing, this sounds strange, even unacceptable. We are used to thinking that religion has always stood opposite unbelief, that the great historical struggle has been between faith and denial. From that habit of thought, the phrase religion against religion appears confusing, perhaps even provocative. Yet what I have gradually come to understand, something I had sensed for a long time, though not with this clarity, is that throughout history religion has never truly fought irreligion. Religion has fought religion, always. By history, I do not mean only the commonly accepted timeline that begins with writing and formal civilization. Writing gives us 6,000 years at most. I'm speaking of a deeper history, the beginning of human social life itself, stretching back 30, 40, even 50,000 years. Archaeology, anthropology, mythology, and geology differ in their estimates, but they agree on one point. From the earliest traces of human society to the present, religion has always been present. There has never been a society without belief. There has never been a stage of social development in any land among any people where human beings lived without some form of religion. Myths in the earliest periods and more documented traditions later all point to the same fact. Religion has always existed, and wherever religion existed, it confronted another religion. At times today, especially in recent centuries, we encounter individuals who deny God or reject the afterlife. But such people have never formed a society, a class, or a historical civilization. As Alexis Carrel observed, every society known to history has possessed a religious structure. Religion has not only shaped human spirituality, it has shaped cities, economies, social hierarchies, and political forms. Temples, sacred spaces, prophets, and holy figures have stood at the physical and symbolic center of civilizations. Cities were built around sanctuaries. Their identities were defined by sacred meanings. Look at ancient cities across East and West. Whether tribal settlements or imperial capitals, they were symbolic cities. Their symbols were not markets or palaces, but sanctuaries. Today this truth is easy to overlook. A modern city like Tehran has no spiritual center. It grew without a sacred heart. But look at a city like Mashhad from above. Everything converges toward a luminous center. The city has a heart. Why were cities symbolic? Because no civilization, no people, no city came into being without a religious purpose. Every historical account of cities, whether of Qum, Yazd, Balkh, Bukhara, or Nishapur, begins with a sacred narrative. A prophet was buried there. A miracle occurred. A holy figure passed through. Meaning preceded stone. This tells us something essential. Ancient humanity was not secular humanity. Whether tribal or imperial, advanced or primitive, all societies were religious societies. Humanity has always been believing humanity. From this, a crucial misunderstanding emerges. When ancient texts speak of disbelief, they are not referring to atheism in the modern sense. Disbelief did not mean denial of God, the unseen, or transcendence. Everyone believed in those realities. What we now call disbelief, non-belief in God, is a recent intellectual phenomenon imported into Eastern societies through modern Western thought. In classical religious language, Disbelief never meant absence of religion. It meant allegiance to a different religion. Disbelief is itself religious. Whenever a prophet appeared, whenever a religious revolution took place, two things always happened. First, the new message arose against an existing religion. Second, the fiercest opposition came not from unbelievers, but from the guardians of the old religion. This is not a minor point. It overturns a common judgment repeated by modern intellectuals, that religion is opposed to progress, freedom, humanity, or at least indifferent to them. This judgment is not born of hatred or ignorance alone. It is based on real historical experience. But the judgment is incomplete. It applies accurately to one religion, but not to all religion. The mistake made by both believers and critics is the failure to distinguish between two fundamentally opposed religions that have coexisted throughout history, clashed with one another, and continue to clash today. One of these religions has indeed stood against freedom, awareness, and justice. The other has risen precisely to destroy it. To confuse them is the central error of religious thought and religious criticism alike. To understand this conflict, we must clarify certain concepts that have become blurred through habitual use. We must reconsider disbelief, association, and idolatry, not as inherited cliches, but as living social realities. Disbelief. Disbelief does not mean denial. In its original sense, it means covering over. A farmer who buries seeds beneath the soil performs an act described by the same root. Disbelief is the covering of a truth that already exists. It is not the absence of religion. It is the replacement of one truth with another system of belief. When a truth exists in the human conscience and is buried under ignorance, self-interest, fear, or habit, that burial is disbelief. Disbelief is not emptiness. It is substitution. Association. Association is not godlessness. Those accused of association often believed in more gods, not fewer. They were not irreligious. They were deeply religious, misdirected but devout. Moses, Jesus, and Abraham did not confront atheists. They confronted religious societies. The opposition they faced came from people who prayed, sacrificed, feared divine forces, and organized their lives around sacred meanings. Association is not lack of faith. It is faith fragmented, divided, multiplied. The associated person believes that multiple powers govern existence. These powers shape destiny, control nature, and determine human fate. In this sense, the associated person experiences the divine no less intensely than the monotheist, but through a distorted lens. Thus, association is a religion, one of the oldest religions humanity has known. Idolatry. Idolatry is not synonymous with association. It is one of its forms. Idolatry refers to the sanctification of objects, images, institutions, or forces as embodiments or intermediaries of divine power. People do not worship idols because they believe stone is divine. They worship idols because they believe power is concentrated there, power over life, fate, prosperity, or fear. Idolatry takes countless forms. Stone and wood are merely the most visible. Power, wealth, lineage, race, capital, violence, tradition, all can become idols. When Scripture says, "Do you worship what your own hands have carved?" it is not mocking stone alone. It is exposing a universal truth. Humans create their own idols, then kneel before them. Association has never disappeared. It did not end with Abraham. It did not vanish with Islam. It simply changed its masks. The two religions. Across history, two religions have always stood face to face. One calls humanity to the worship of a single absolute power, the creator, the sustainer, the source of all value and meaning. From this unity flows a radical conclusion. If the source is one, humanity is one. No race, class, lineage, or power has inherent superiority. This is the religion of unity. The other religion accepts God in name, but divides power in practice. It multiplies authorities, sanctifies hierarchies, and justifies domination. It preserves the existing order by declaring it sacred. This is the religion of association. The first is revolutionary, the second is conservative. The religion of unity does not accept the world as it is. It interrogates it. It challenges injustice, dismantles false sanctities, and calls for transformation. Every prophet began by opposing the prevailing order. Moses confronted wealth, priesthood, and political tyranny at once. Jesus confronted religious hypocrisy and imperial power. Mohammed confronted tribal idols, economic exploitation, and inherited privilege. They did not merely preach belief, they demanded change. The religion of association does the opposite. It sanctifies what exists. It teaches people that their suffering is divinely ordained, that inequality is natural, that obedience is virtue. It tells the oppressed to wait. It tells the powerful they rule by sacred right. This religion is not atheistic. It is deeply theological. It speaks endlessly of God, destiny, fate, and the afterlife, while draining responsibility from human action. It is the religion that turns belief into anesthesia. And it has ruled history far more than the religion of unity. The revolutionary faith. What does it mean for a religion to be revolutionary? A revolutionary faith does not merely speak about the world, it judges it. It does not reconcile human beings with their conditions, it confronts those conditions. A person educated within such a faith looks at economic life, social relations, political authority, morality, and culture with a critical eye. Wherever falsehood reigns, this faith demands its removal. Wherever injustice stands, it calls for replacement, not reform, not decoration, but transformation. This is why the first act of every prophet was negation, not affirmation, not compromise, negation. They did not arrive to bless the existing order. They arrived to deny it. Look at Moses. He stood against three symbols of domination: wealth, religion, and political power. Karun represented accumulated capital. Balaam embodied corrupted priesthood. Pharaoh personified absolute political authority. Moses did not negotiate with these forces. He challenged them at their roots. His struggle was not merely theological, it was social. Racial hierarchy, economic exploitation, and political tyranny were all fused together. A minority ruled, a majority served. One group claimed divine right, another carried the burden. The revolutionary faith shattered that structure. It declared that no race is chosen, no bloodline sacred, no throne eternal. Authority belongs neither to wealth nor lineage, but to justice. The conservative faith, on the other hand, accepts the metaphysical principles of religion while emptying them of consequence. It speaks of God, resurrection, angels, destiny, yet insists that nothing in the present world should change. It tells people, this is how things are meant to be. Fatalism becomes its most powerful instrument. The idea of destiny, when detached from responsibility, paralyzes society. It convinces people that oppression is fate, poverty is divine will, and protest is rebellion against God. This distortion did not arise accidentally, it was manufactured. History shows clearly that doctrines of absolute predestination were systematized under regimes that needed passive populations. When rulers wished to eliminate criticism, accountability, and moral responsibility, they taught people that everything was already written. But look at the earliest believers around the prophets. They were not passive. They were restless, responsible, critical, engaged. Faith awakened them. It did not numb them. Commanding good, resisting evil. There is a principle deeply rooted in the revolutionary faith: responsibility toward society. In modern terms, European intellectuals call it social conscience, artistic responsibility, ethical engagement. In religious language, it is the duty to promote what is right and resist what is wrong. Yet over time this principle was reduced to trivialities. Instead of confronting injustice, it became a tool for policing personal behavior. Instead of challenging power, it monitored appearances. When responsibility is stripped of courage, it becomes hypocrisy. The religion of unity never confined responsibility to private morality. It demanded public accountability. Silence in the face of injustice was itself injustice. The conservative faith through history. The religion of association preserved itself in two ways. First, openly, through visible forms such as totemism, tribal gods, polytheism, spirit worship. These were overt systems with clear hierarchies of divine power corresponding to social hierarchies. Second, covertly, this was its most dangerous form. When prophets triumphed and monotheism became dominant, the old religion did not disappear. It infiltrated. It hid beneath sacred language. It wore the garments of the victorious faith. Those who opposed Moses later appeared as scholars of Moses' law. Those who crucified Jesus later preached in his name. Those who fought Mohammed later ruled under his banner. This is the hidden association, the faith that speaks the language of unity while practicing division. In medieval Europe, atrocities were committed in the name of love, forgiveness, and peace. The symbols of compassion were used to justify violence on a scale unmatched by invaders or conquerors. Were these acts expressions of prophetic faith, or were they the ancient religion of domination wearing a new mask? History answers clearly. Religion as anesthetic. Critics of religion in the 18th and 19th centuries made powerful claims. They argued that religion dulled pain by promising rewards in another world, that it explained injustice as divine will, that it discouraged rebellion by sanctifying suffering. They were right about one religion. They were describing the conservative faith, the religion of association, the religion that rules history. They mistook it for all religion. This error allowed defenders of oppression to hide behind the sacred, and critics of oppression to reject the sacred entirely. Both sides misunderstood the battlefield. The revolutionary faith has rarely ruled society. It has appeared briefly, powerfully, then been suppressed, distorted, or absorbed. The one historical exception, partial, fragile, short-lived, was the community established in Medina. For a brief moment, society was organized around equality, shared responsibility, and justice. Wealth circulated. Power was accountable. Identity was human before tribal. Even that experiment lasted barely a decade. Its structure survived, but its spirit was overtaken. From then on, the conservative faith reclaimed dominance. God and humanity. In the core texts of the revolutionary faith, God and humanity appear side by side, not in metaphysical abstraction, but in social reality. Wherever social justice is discussed, God and people are inseparable. To serve God is to serve humanity. To violate humanity is to rebel against God. When Scripture speaks of lending to God, it means giving to people. When it speaks of God's family, it means humanity. This unity destroys every justification for exploitation. If wealth belongs to God, it belongs to people, not to rulers claiming divine representation. This is why tyrants have always feared this interpretation. It strips them of sacred immunity. Those who worship power. Opposite the revolutionary faith stands a class described across history by many names: elites, oligarchs, privileged circles. They control wealth, decision-making, and culture while bearing no responsibility. They are not atheists. They always believe in something divine, often more fervently than the oppressed, but their God sanctifies their dominance. Their religion teaches obedience downward and privilege upward. Against them stands the faith that declares, God stands with people, Justice is the measure of belief. Responsibility is the proof of faith. Why hold to faith? When intellectuals ask how one can still hold to religion after witnessing history's abuses, the answer is simple. I do not hold to the religion that ruled history. I hold to the religion that history suppressed. To embrace this faith is not to return to the past. It is to continue a struggle unfinished, to remove the narcotic religion and restore the faith of awareness, responsibility, and justice. This struggle is not theological nostalgia, it is human obligation. And so, religion continues to stand against religion. Continuing the argument. When we say that religion has always stood against religion, we must now ask a sharper question: which religion has history actually followed? If we read history honestly, without reverence, without resentment, we see a clear pattern. The religion that governed societies, shaped institutions, legitimized power, and educated the masses was not the faith of unity and liberation. It was the faith of justification and preservation. The victorious religion of history was not the religion of prophets. It was the religion of rulers. Prophets appeared as disruptors. They entered societies already saturated with belief, ritual, and sacred language. They did not bring religion into an empty space. They brought a different orientation, a different alignment of meaning, power, and responsibility. And for this reason, they were resisted not by skeptics, but by believers. Every prophet stood alone at first, not against irreligion, but against the official religion of his time. Against its clergy, its sacred economics, its inherited authority, its frozen morality. This is why prophets were accused not of atheism, but of heresy, not of disbelief, but of threatening the gods, the sanctuaries, the traditions. They were not seen as outsiders. They were seen as traitors to the sacred order. Why history misremembers religion. Modern critiques of religion often rely on historical evidence. Inquisitions, holy wars, caste systems, clerical corruption, fatalism, repression. These facts are real. They cannot be denied. But they must be located correctly. History did not betray religion. One religion betrayed another. What triumphed was the religion that aligned itself with power, wealth, and hierarchy. What was defeated, again and again, was the religion that aligned itself with humanity, justice, and moral responsibility. The tragedy is not that religion failed humanity. The tragedy is that humanity mistook the enemy of liberation for its ally, and mistook the voice of liberation for silence. Knowledge and fear. One of the clearest distinctions between the two religions lies in their relationship to knowledge. The conservative faith fears awareness. It monopolizes interpretation. It restricts education. It discourages questioning. It survives on ignorance. Where people learn to read, to think, to compare, to critique, this faith weakens. That is why it has always guarded knowledge as privilege. Sacred texts become inaccessible. Interpretation becomes professionalized. Thought becomes dangerous. The revolutionary faith, by contrast, thrives on awareness. It calls people to reflection, understanding, and responsibility. It does not fear questions, it demands them. Throughout history, whenever knowledge spread among the masses, the religion of domination trembled. This is why tyrannies burn books before they burn bodies. The names of the gods, even the names and attributes assigned to the divine, reveal the difference between the two religions. The conservative faith emphasizes fear, punishment, wrath, submission. Its God is distant, unpredictable, authoritarian. He resembles the rulers who speak in his name. The revolutionary faith emphasizes justice, compassion, dignity, purpose. Its God is not an extension of power but a challenge to it, not a justification of order but a standard against which order is judged. This God cannot be monopolized, he cannot be owned, he cannot be inherited. That is why rulers have always preferred the first image. Unity as social principle. Unity is not merely metaphysical. It is not only a statement about the nature of the universe. It is a social principle. If power is one, no human being may claim divine authority over another. If creation is one, no race may dominate another. If value is one, no class may sanctify its privilege. This is why the religion of unity is inherently disruptive. It dissolves the sacred foundations of inequality. Association, by contrast, divides. It assigns different gods to different groups, different rights to different people, different worth to different lives. Its theology is plural. Its injustice is systematic. Medina as interrupted possibility. The community formed in Medina remains unique not because it was perfect, but because it was intentional. For a brief moment, social relations were reorganized around shared humanity rather than lineage. Wealth circulated rather than accumulated. Authority was accountable rather than absolute. It was not paradise, it was possibility. And it frightened the old religion more than any army could. That possibility was soon constrained, redirected, absorbed. The structure remained, but the content shifted. Titles replaced responsibility. Ritual replaced justice. Loyalty replaced conscience. The old religion returned, this time speaking the language of the new. Why the struggle continues. The conflict between the two religions is not historical curiosity. It is ongoing. Every society, every institution, every movement carries traces of both. The question is not whether religion exists, but which religion is active. Does belief awaken or anesthetize? Does it demand responsibility or excuse submission? Does it challenge power or bless it? Wherever belief serves power, it belongs to the old religion. Wherever belief empowers humanity, it belongs to the prophetic one. This distinction does not belong to the past. It defines the present. And it places a burden on anyone who speaks in the name of faith. To claim belief is not to repeat inherited words. It is to choose a side in an unfinished struggle. The struggle of religion against religion continues, not in books alone, but in lived reality. And there is no neutrality.